Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Well, that was cute. If you guys were watching on video, you will see my guest today, Shafik's super cute faces of confusion before the show started. So go to video and watch that. That was super cute. So, guess what? I have a guest today. That's right. So if you were listening last week, you would have heard me say, hey, I have a guest next week. Stay tuned for that. We are going to be having a little conversation with actually another podcast creator in the world. And his name is Shafik Kamani. And we're actually going to be talking about a few things. I actually created this title for him without his consent. What? Yeah, I did. It was awkward. And I was like, I didn't ask for consent. However, this is the title, Sexual Identity in a South Asian Culture. Now, I chose that for a reason. I didn't want to give away everything for free. So we're going to be talking about why did I pick that and what's going on there. And before I actually get into this conversation, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my guest. So Shafik is a self-proclaimed creative madman, definitely. Shafik successfully straddles the world of his imagination with the world we're living in. He's devoted to telling stories, and personal philosophy is to create art with purpose, whether creating art, dance, theater, drag, fashion, or branding a company. Shafik's work is expressive and it exhibits his passion for community and culture. He's committed to developing quality work that implements new standards, pushes boundaries, and challenges norms. His artwork is expressive and exhibits the brute force of his passion. You can see that he is 100% committed to produce quality work that pushes boundaries, which I love pushing boundaries. This show is all about that. And Shafik continues to develop creative products too. Well, I just said products, so maybe you got products coming. Projects in Toronto and Winnipeg, currently focusing on printmaking art series called Circle, and video podcast 42 Souls. One Journey, a raw and unedited look into our lives as humans, which, by the way, you will see in the future. I was a guest on his show, so that's fun. And so today we're talking about what? I don't know. I created that title and I was like, this is such an awkward title, but I think it's appropriate yet awkward at the same time. So sexual identity in a South Asian culture. Why would I say that, Shafik? Why would I say that about you? What was I thinking?
I mean, I don't know, but I mean, awkward is fun. So it's a good spot to be in. You know, we had yeah. So sexual identity in South Asian culture. I guess you wanted to come across that I'm a gay South Asian person, and we're going to talk about what that is all about.
Yeah, I did, and I also didn't want to label you as. I kind of wanted to give you a fluid explanation of who you are, just because that's my feeling of you. And even though you might identify one way, I wanted to kind of broaden it because I think that you can not only speak for gay men in a South Asian culture, but I also feel that you have a different perspective than, say, me as a white woman living in a Christian culture, which is different than being a South Asian male living in a Muslim culture. So I wanted to kind of broaden the title so that you could kind of speak to a culture that is pretty heteronormative. And I mean, we are pretty that way anyway, but I would, when I think of Muslim culture, I don't think of openly gay people. Like that's not where my mind goes. I think, wow, there's a lot of restrictions and there's a lot of judgment. And so what I love talking to you about is how you've lived your life to be able to live in a way that you feel open receiving who you are and not being apologetic about it. Like, how do you live an unapologetic life in a culture that requires apology for who you are?
Wow. I think it's taken time to get here, but I think having a great family or a great network of friends really helps. I think back to because like when I was at the age of 5, we were in Africa, in Kenya specifically, and there's a photograph of me dressed up as a girl going to what I think is a Halloween party, but like their version of a Halloween party. And I remember looking back, being like, "Whoa, like that happened." And my dad let that happen, and my parents were like, "Right, the little boy wants to look like a girl, let him do it." And I think having such a strong family that just said, "Okay, it's just a person who just wants to do what he wants to do." I think that really helps sort of allow me to be and try things wherever I am, right? So like I didn't actually come until I was 21, but because I was so allowed to just be who I was and nothing was sort of taboo-esque for me within my own family circle, I never really like when I looked at men, I was like, oh, they're attractive, but I never thought of them as like sexually attractive. But it was never something that I don't know, I didn't even have to question it. Like it wasn't, it wasn't
Isn't
even a
that
concept in my
cool?
head. Yeah. There's such a
Yeah.
thin line in the South Asian culture where like there's this meme that goes around that there's two brown men holding hands, and it's like gay or just in India. Like it's such a culture of, like holding another man's hand or showing affection isn't deemed gay. I think that's more of a North American culture. Because I remember coming
Mm.
here, and as soon as like those affectionate moments were completely categorized or put into a box as soon as I came to Canada. But I don't remember having any of those restrictions, or nobody ever, you know, uh, captured my compassion and my love into sexuality.
Oh, I love
Yeah, so I
that.
think,
It didn't have to be
yeah,
categorized. And then somewhere,
no,
it's funny, somewhere we colonialized sex and we had to categorize it and own it and have people own us. It's all very funny when you think about it. It's kind of ridiculous. So,
yeah, it's
yeah, however that came about. Luckily, you didn't grow up in a culture that required that. Well, you didn't grow up in a home that required that of you, which is such an amazing thing to have in your life so that you can just be yourself. So, even though you were saying, like, I didn't really have to identify as gay, what at the age of 21 had you go, I need to come out to my family and identify as gay?
all right. So, towards the end of my high school, towards the end of my high school, I was dating this girl, and we were dating for I think about a year or so, but I never reacted in the way the typical boys in my class would reacted, right? Like, so I would every time she's like, "Oh, my parents are home. You want to come out?" I'm like, "Oh, I have to go home," and I'm gonna say this out loud. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I would go home and watch Sailor Moon. I feel like no heterosexual boy at the age of 17 or 18 is gonna like, oh, and she like we're still friends. She's a stunning woman. I think like many men would have killed to go home with. And I was like, oh, I gotta go home and watch Sailor Moon. But in my head, it wasn't like it didn't click to me being like, oh, I'd rather watch Sailor Moon than sleep with this person. And then the year after, I went to art college, and there, I think my eyes were a bit more open up, and the men were still as attractive, but they were sexually arousing as well for me. So
Mm,
I wanted to go home with them and watch Sailor Moon more than I wanted to go
right.
home and watch Sailor Moon with my ex-girlfriend at that point. So that's kind of
Having
what.
Sailor Moon on in the background just as a thing, right?
All
And
right.
then having sex in front of Sailor Moon, even more attractive. That's just a whole other category of love, right?
It is. I'm going to do a whole different podcast about that, right? Like, I mean, the costuming in Sailor Moon was gorgeous. I feel like,
Yeah, cosplay
mhm.
right there. You could go crazy.
Like,
That's hilarious.
right?
I love that you were turned on by Sailor Moon. That's freaking awesome. I can't think of like in high school, would I rather have, watched a show than like get it on with somebody. I can't really think of like if I tried to do that. I'll have to think about that during the next, few minutes and see if I ever did that. But I was pretty aggressive, sexually aggressive. So if you had been my boyfriend, I probably would have been really rudely not respective of your space. I know that
Yeah.
about me. I would have been like, don't worry, I'll just give you a blowjob and we'll see where this goes. And you would have been like, what the fuck are you doing to me? So, yeah, looking back, because I think in high school I did date somebody who is pretty sure now is gay. And that's kind of how it went. And I was like, that it was freaking rude. at the same time, it was like, I don't know, I think we expected that that was what you were supposed to do, right? You were supposed to do these things that teenagers do, and you were supposed to explore and be almost disrespectful of each other and almost non-consensual. It was awkward. So I'm glad we didn't date, because this would have been a very awkward conversation. So that was good. And I probably would have figured out when you went home for Sailor Moon what was going on too.
Yeah.
Because as much as I was doing that, I was also deeply, strangely, this is really funny. I had this thing in high school that I really wanted to have a group of gay male friends, because my mom had a group of gay male friends from high school, and she's still friends with them. And one of them, they still write to each other, adore each other. One of them she dated, but my mom was safe. My mom didn't want to have sex in high school. So my mom was the safe girl to date if you were gay. And everybody she dated in high school was gay. so it was great for her. And so I was like, oh, I really love what she's created in her life. I want to have gay friends. And I was seeking them out, but I didn't realize I was dating them at the time. So I didn't realize I was fully following her method, which was a good method. I just didn't recognize it at the time. So yeah. But I love that you at some point go to art school, where in general people are more open, right? There's just a different culture about art school. So at what point was it, like, did you find that you were in a community of other South Asian men where you were like, hey, we all have this thing in common? Or was there any kind of connection to culture for you at that point in college? Or was it just strictly male bodies, that was all?
Yeah, I would say strictly. So I went to Sheridan College back in the 90s, and it was predominantly white. But I was in the graphic design division was in the same place as the theater dancers.
Mm.
And those boys, lads, I would have appreciated a blowjob as soon as possible from there. But I think like when you see little ballet dancers and like just strutting down the hallway, you're like, damn, like, yeah, I feel like it was a permission. And then they were more like, I think I saw a man kiss for the first time there. There was more availability to explore there without having to be tied around any boundaries. And because I wasn't in Toronto, even though Oak was only like an hour's, I could explore and not be I could be like, oh, nobody knows me here. And there was less South Asian people there, so nobody would go home and tell my parents what they saw me doing.
That's convenient.
Right, and all these boys I think all the boys came from out of town, so they weren't Toronto boys. So it wasn't as if I was going to go home. If I decided I wasn't going to be gay and was just like exploring, I wasn't going to go back to Toronto and be outed. So I think there was a freedom that came with that space. And then art kids were just allowed to be gay, and if you do a little weed and you can explore a little, like there was an allowance that happened at that point.
That's beautiful.
A type of allowance, yeah.
In
I'm so
Oakville, of
grateful for
all
that.
places, which is
Yeah,
pretty, for those people who are listening around the world, it's pretty waspy.
yeah.
That's one way to put it. It's, yep. So good for you.
Yeah. But
Breaking,
not in art
breaking
school,
it down in Sheridan.
right?
Yes, not in art school.
Yeah.
No, that's true. I actually took 2 weeks off in my life after university around 1997, and I went to Sheridan for 2 weeks to do glassblowing,
Oh,
which is like, there's a community that just gets it on with everybody and anybody. They're kind of a wild bunch, and that was in the Sheridan campus in Oakville. So if anybody's looking for good times, go to Sheridan College. This is where it's at.
yeah.
So, apparently, this is where it's at.
One of my roommates was a glass blower, and you're right.
Oh,
They were like a hippie. Like they were just like, yeah, we're gonna have like they were like go with the flow kind of guys. They're a good bunch to go have fun with. They're kind and they're a safe bunch of people to have sex with.
hippie love. Yeah, it's all about the
Oh,
hippie love.
it is.
So I'm curious actually. Well, we're gonna head to a commercial in about 1 minute, but I'm curious in your life if you've ever come up against any, because you have a fairly unique story from being South Asian gay male coming out of the closet, even doing, even within your family, like you have a very kind of unique perspective. And that's one reason I like sharing your stories, because I think there are a lot of people who don't have that story, who have gone through a lot of stuff. But I'm curious if you've actually gone through, what would you think are some of the greatest walls you've come up against with your identity?
Um, within my, I think there were personal walls. I think there's stuff that you think you're supposed to act in a very specific way based on what society is telling you, and having to think that I have to measure up to those things. I think those were the biggest walls because I didn't. In no way I did. I was so different. I was the arts kid in a very businessy community, but I kept thinking I had to be like all the MBA kids and like all my friends who were doing that, all were doing all the business stuff or the lawyer stuff. And I think that would like feel like I had to measure up to people and be like them would probably be the biggest wall, I would say. Um, which is bizarre because I feel like as soon as I came out, all my straight friends would come and we'd hit the gay bars together. Like they were so supportive about it, and they were just like, "Great, you're who you are, and come and we'll join in the celebration." So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So the coming out actually was kind of one of the greatest gifts. Then you had this community of people you could go out with, and once you kind of got over the competition with others, which I
right.
think everybody goes through at some point in life, they're, trying to prove they exist or trying to prove how good of a person they are. So, I got to prove I exist. So I got to outdo this and outdo that. And
Yeah.
which is tricky. It's exhausting. So if you are out there trying to prove you exist, you don't have to like fight it, just be it. I think it's just pretty simple. We are going to have a further conversation here because we have lots to talk about on this show. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure. Isn't it fun?
Sorry.
Thank you. No, go ahead. The beat is fun. I tend to like groove to it. So those of you who are listening, go watch some videos. Guess what? We are actually live and we are podcast and we are on video on over 250 locations. What? Yeah, pretty crazy, pretty insane. So go watch us on video if you want to see the commercial breaks where Shafik and I were having a dance off, which we may have in the next one as well. We kept it a little low key this time. And I was actually thinking about like how many crazy dance offs I could have going on in the background when I have guests on. In a couple of weeks, I have this phenomenal woman coming on. Her name's Patty Alfonso, and she does like conscious pole dancing. And the coolest thing was I just saw her on a Netflix documentary and I was like, what? You're on a Netflix documentary. She'd been on my show about 5 years ago. So she's coming back on in March to talk about that, which I'm very excited about. And that is actually a thing that they call people sensual movement artists. And I heard that. I was like, but that's my title. I don't think I have the same qualification. And I went into a little headspin on that because I was like, I'm actually not a pole dancer and it's different. But I had a moment of self-judgment yesterday and I was like, get over it. they can have the same title and mean something different. Lots of people have the word doctor on their name. It doesn't mean they're doing surgery. So I was feeling a little bit better after that. And my sweet pleasure seekers, we're talking to somebody who's not just got like sensual movement in their life. They've got, Shafik is a really amazing person, super creative, super artistic. And one of the fun things about Shafik is he also does drag. And I love drag. Like, I always thought that I would be probably better received as a woman in drag because I'm quite tall. I'm like 5'11", and I think I've had moments in my life where I've dressed up and I swear people have like, man or woman, I can't tell. And I think I can be questionable that way. So I always think it would be fun if I went like full drag and have people like question their reality about me. Is she not? What's happening here? So I'm curious, what was it in your life that had you step into that creative expression of drag? Dressing up when you were like 5 in a dress is a little different than going full drag, right? So what prompted that?
One before, I think you should totally do drag. There's a different persona that comes out that I think either male or female, like we should like. I think full drag Milica should be a goal. I think it'd be fantastic to see who comes out from there, because there's another person that comes out. So drag for me. So when I turned 30, was really wanted to challenge things that scared me. I was like, okay, if I think of something that scares me, I'm gonna go and try it out. I think it was the first time I realized that fear is just the unknown. Like, you're scared of something because you don't know it. And like, I had just come out, and I was always a little dancer boy in the front, like watching the drag shows. They're like my Sailor Moon, right? I was like fascinated by them, but they would always pick on me, and they had a sense of humor that was very, I wouldn't say cunty, but it was just very like, it was new for me. Yeah, like, but like they were playful. There was a whole persona about them, but me, I was like, oh my god, I'm scared. Like, I don't want to. Like, I want to dance, but I don't want to be picked on. And then so I kept going back further in the line so they wouldn't see me. And then as soon as I recognized that at 30, I was like, okay, like, you're scared of this. There's just a person behind there with a painted face. Maybe it's time for you to explore it. So I remember trying it for the first time and fell in love with it because it sort of combined all the things I was already doing. So I love portraiture painting, and so you have to reconstruct your face with paint or makeup in this case. So that was great. Like, it becomes a theater show almost, right? So you're a theater. So I was like, oh, I'm a dancer. I've been on stage, and I love painting faces. Let me explore this whole thing. And I think the more, like, I thought I was only going to do once or twice because I thought I was going to be amazing at it, but I wasn't the first few times. But then it became this challenge of how to be as visually looking, like how to be as visually looking as somebody else. Like, I think I thought it'd be as easy as just like, I did think it'd be easiest putting mascara and lipstick and be like, okay, I'm pretty, I'm a girl, I'm ready to go. But it's not the case. There's so much that goes into it's an art form, and there's so much that goes into it. I think like when I see courageous women and who are like, oh my god, I want to be skinny, I'm like, no, like, drag queens wear floss pads, we cinch ourselves to look like you. Like, it's such a beautiful shape. So every time people talk about curves, they're like, oh, like when women want to be drag queens, I'm like, why? You already have, like, I work to look like you, and I put 3 hours into it. You just have to roll out of bed. Like, how lucky are you to do that? And so it started off as something I was afraid of. I thought I'd do it twice, and ended up having, I think it was like 5 or 6 years. I ended up diving more into it. So I was learning more about makeup. I ended up like doing pageants. It really taught me about my body and then how I look at women's bodies. Like, I think that was the big thing for me as well, because I remember thinking, my first one, I think I wore a sari the first time I went out, because again, how hard can it be to do that? And I know how to tie fabric around my waist. And I was a skinny boy then, and I was wearing, like, I wore the sari, and because I had to, underneath the sari, there's a piece that you really tie tight. Mm-hmm. It made me get a muffin top. And I was like,
that's attractive.
Yeah, and like, literally, like, I was a 30-year-old who had been dancing, so my body was like, I was really skinny, so there wasn't really much body fat. But I remember going, oh fuck, no one, like, the underneath fabric is forcing your body to like be tight underneath so that it hangs out, which is making you think you're fat when you really aren't. And I was like, and then I also went into women's stores, like when I went to H&M to buy a dress, like one dress I would be a 2 and one dress I'd be a 10, and I was like, what the fuck? And then we
Isn't that
never think about
annoying?
this. It
So annoying.
body dysmorphia for women makes sense now to me at that point because I was like, oh my god, like fucking society is telling you like you can be two different sizes in one store. Men, I'm a size 30-30. I could go anywhere in the world and get a pair of pants, not have to question it. We're not even try it on. If I know what my size is, women don't have that luxury. Like,
No.
yeah, I remember being like, oh, it's like it tapped into a spot of me where I was like, I think it's more and way more like understanding about what happens with like this is why there's so much more body dysmorphia with women, right? Like it's just like culturally we're fucking up through fabric and clothing, which should just be essential. We should all be able to just look beautiful in everything we wear, right? So yeah, I don't know how I got there, but
I love that. It's because it has a lot to do with bodies and pleasure, and that's what we're here to talk about. And that is such a great point. I recently I was like looking to order something online, which I don't recommend you ever do when you look at size charts, because then you start judging the effing crap out of yourself. And I was like, oh, look at that little sexy number. It was supposed to be like some like amazing bustier lingerie that has like it just kind of like sits under your boobs and then it has tassels. And I was like, damn, look at that. I
ooh,
love tassels. And I was like, all right. So I go to find my size on the chart. I don't exist because I'm in the extra, extra large. I'm extra, extra large. And I'm like, how did I get extra, extra large when I used to be a medium? And I'm like, so I'm looking at the sizes and I'm like, size 0 is a 24-inch waist. I'm like, that is a tiny woman. I know they exist, but I don't know a lot of women that are that tiny. And and I double checked myself and I'm like, okay, am I really that size? But yes, according to Lingerie World, I'm like an extra, extra large, which for a moment pissed me off. And then I stopped and I went, you know what's really weird is the bodies on women that I really adore are large women. I think like women with like big boobs and big ass
mm,
and like voluptuous women are great. And I'm like, maybe I'm creating that. So that was kind of cool
yeah.
because for like a while ago, um, I remember, and it was weird. I woke up with this thought too, and I remember today, and I was thinking about a friend of mine. I'd gone swimming with her one day, and she was complaining about the size of her body, and I looked at her. I was like, "You actually have the ideal body to me," and and I thought, "Oh, that's really weird. I think I'm getting her body." And now just my breasts are going to grow bigger because her breasts are bigger. And I thought that was fascinating. She's about my height too. And I thought, oh, that's actually like the body size that makes sense to me. And so I guess I'm getting them. And who knew that that falls into the extra, extra large category? But what I love is the other name for it is queen size. And I was
Ooh,
like, I'll have that queen size.
yeah, of course you want that. Why would you not?
Yeah, of
Which,
course you want queen size.
yeah. I mean, we also want a king size California bed, but a queen sized woman?
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that you brought that up. And I think it's interesting that like your first experience with that is going into shops and realizing
Yeah.
what women are dealing with when they look at clothing all the time. And even the judgment of yeah, and I've worn saris too. And no matter what, and when I wore saris, weighed like 35 pounds less than I weigh now. And even then it was always that little muffin and you're like, how do you not have this? Like you always, and plus all the folds of material at the front
Yeah.
always give you the extra poof. So yeah, that was very something. But then I was figuring that there must be something that has been inherent in the culture in India that finds that attractive, because a woman's body then would look pregnant. I would think that was attractive. It would maybe create a sense of abundance or wealth. I was trying to figure out what the ideal behind that was, but I figure it has something to do with, this is my analysis of it, it has something to do with birthing and having children, making you look like you're more able to.
No, I
You've
think you're
got the
correct
bigger
about that.
hips or, yeah.
Yeah, you are. I know in figure drawing class, one of the things that we talked about was like when you draw a man, you always want to draw him with a V shape. So when a man has a bigger chest, it allows for comfortness. So in relationship, you want men visually find women with hips more attractive because instinctively that's where the birthing is happens. So I remember reading that somewhere that they were just saying that the bigger the shape, the more like I said, a subconscious attractive attraction that happens from a man to a woman. And same if a man's got a more broader shoulder, that's what you want, because you want to be more comfortable. So it's pretty interesting that yeah, I wonder if that did come through somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and that they've known that forever because saris haven't changed in like 5,000 years, I don't think. So
Yeah.
no.
I mean, it's the country that created Kama Sutra, so they
Right? So
must
they're
know
kind of onto
something.
something. Yeah, they know what they're doing. So- and actually, it is a country too where there is a subculture of drag that happens. Transvestitism is actually really there's like a whole subculture that is highly revered, which is really cool to me. If you guys have never heard of that, you can research that. I think I mentioned it in a few shows that I've done. It's really cool in that the people who have who they're actually kind of chosen for this role, right? And then they're living their lives. It's they're usually born male and then they're living their lives as women. They're used in different rituals as something that's highly revered, which is incredibly amazing to me. Then, of course, you get, British colonialism comes in and kind of wrecks all of that beauty, probably makes it really wrong, right? Just like Indian men holding hands was natural for like ever. And then that became something that we have to question, which is true for also in most countries in Africa. I recently was investigating that it was actually completely normal to have variations of relationships in different countries, like even say like all across Africa. There, you could be homosexual. They didn't identify it. It was men living with men, women living with women. People loved each other. There was no name for it. There was no judgment for it. Then the British come by and other colonial countries like France and Portugal, and they kind of fuck things up in Spain. Yeah, so thank you to all of you guys for fucking that up. But I think there's such beauty when you look at the history that there is actually no judgment on that.
A friend of mine had talked about so she's from Pakistan, and she had said that like the trans movement is only an issue in North America. It wasn't a problem. It's not a problem in East Asian cultures. So like if you think Thailand or you think like Pakistan or India, like it's revered there. Like it wasn't a thing there. It became a thing here, and it's a thing here in North America.
Yeah.
But like I'm now in Winnipeg, which is like Treaty 1 territory, and I talked to a friend of mine who said the same thing about the Aboriginal people, the Native Americans here. Oh, I don't know what
Yes.
whatever the right term, Aboriginal,
Indigenous, I think we're
Indigenous.
saying now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Indigenous people here, right? That wasn't a thing that even they feel. That was a thing that they had to conform to until they got colonized.
Until.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah.
They're actually revered in indigenous cultures, that you're considered dual spirited.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I worked with a fellow years ago at a holistic metaphysical bookstore in Toronto, and he did psychic readings in his community. So he was part of Six Nations out of Brantford, and in his community, because he was gay, he was automatically considered to be psychic and knowing about the future. It was like a given. It's like, you're born that way, so this is what you know. How awesome is that? You have a natural born gift, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, then I would love to tap into it a lot earlier. It would make life a lot,
Yeah.
I would have my superpower already. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And they actually can identify fairly young, right? They'll acknowledge that fairly young, and then they get trained into they harness those capacities, which is, isn't it a beautiful thing? We need more of that, harnessing our capacities. We're going to head to a commercial, though. I'm like behind on commercials right now, so sorry about that, people. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. Yeah, that was a little interesting commercial, dippy doodle, whatever happened right there, but we're good. I think you guys missed it. If you didn't miss it, then you're watching video, but there was another dance-off. I'm pretty sure Shafik won that one, but that's all good. I'm going to get on there. I'm going to get even better. Shafik's got natural just like thing. I had to feel like I had to work it extra, like bring in the scarf just to like add to it. So it's okay. I'm going to do it next time. I'm winning the next dance off. It's just
you had hairography. You had hairography and a veil. Like you
hairography. I did it.
You blew hair. And I was like, I looked down. I was like, oh my God, I want a veil. All I have is a dirty towel on the floor. And I was like, don't pick that up. But
yeah, that would be interesting.
I was like, damn.
Is it a sex towel, darling? Because if it is, bring that towel on. That's what we need more of. It's not a sex towel.
Wish.
Damn it.
If I would have known, I'll keep, Just
keep the cum towel for next time. That's going to be good. Because we all want to see that on video. It's fabulous.
Good for
we
you.
don't see those on video, really, ever.
That's a good idea. I wonder why not.
You don't see them in cleanup. Yes, why not? I'm sure there's like people out there who have like a fascination for the towel and maybe would buy towels. Secondary business coming up soon. You get to buy the towel that I wiped off with.
Well, in circles I've traveled around in, like when some-stained underwear sells for high.
Yes.
So I would imagine the towels would be, they're good for the environment. You're not, you're reusing it. I feel like there's lots of pros with it.
I think
if
so.
you get to sell it, yeah.
And it's neutral, right? So like anybody could have a towel.
Yeah. Ooh. I think
sex
we brainstormed a new idea. Yeah.
I know. Secondary business. We just started here on the show today, people.
Yeah, copyright that shit quick. Yeah.
Got friends who want to be part of this business. All my friends who want to have like affiliate links to this business, just let us know. We are on it.
Yeah, we can design a monogram or something on the towel so you know it's specifically for you. Like
that's right.
Yeah, request one. We'll monogram it for you before we
send it out
and send it to you. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I don't think anybody's been on that yet, so that's a pretty unique one. I do know about the underwear. Several years ago, I had a friend who sent me a link suggesting that I should sell mine on there, which was really sweet. And I thought, wow, I love that my friends think I could sell my underwear for like $2,000. That's awesome. So you never know. I have not put my underwear up for sale yet, but I appreciate. I know. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I should just
put
the underwear for sale. I didn't actually. I wasn't offered the $2,000, but when I looked on the site, some of them were selling for like $2,000, and these are like. They've been worn for 3 months underwear. And I had to get around that thought. And I was like, I could maybe do 2 days underwear, but 3 months underwear? Damn, that's kind of beyond funk for me. So I get that some people are digging that. I just don't know how my family would feel about how I would smell. It could be awkward. So
I love that you're committed to it. That you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm actually going to, you'd have to for 3 months. Like, you're so committed to I am. Not being fake about it. I mean, give it a try. Even if you're there, even say you get 5 days, see what that would sell for.
Yeah, maybe 5. I could maybe max it out at 5. Whenever these like great business ideas come to mind, I like to share them with my husband, he always has like a very practical perspective on this stuff. He's like, okay, so like, but what underwear do you want to sell? Like, you don't want to sell the cotton ones. Like he'll like go like full on supportive and like figure out like where are we going to make the most money out of this, which is really sweet. Have to bring the underwear back up to him because that was a number of years ago. But I recently brought up the idea of doing an OnlyFans account with him. And he was like, all right, you can do that, but I think what you want to do, and then he gets practical. He's like, I think what you want to do is not put your face in it. I think you just want some crotch shots. I'm like, are you going to videography me? And he's like, I can work with you on that. Sure. I'm like, you're the best husband any girl's ever had. Damn it.
Like your sex research team. It sounds amazing. You'd be like, honey, just go figure out what sells the most, and then how do we replicate it? Yeah, if you can do that,
exactly.
Sounds fun.
And he'd be right into doing that research. I'll go watch a bunch of porn and let you know what I like the best.
Yeah.
Best wife ever, best husband ever, right?
Yeah. And there's subscriptions that just business write-off. So hello.
Exactly. That was just a total tangent because we just created a business with dirty towels, which was fun, and I like that. So I want to actually talk more about you and just like your life in general. Just I'm curious, like some of these projects you're doing, can you tell me more about your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is called 42. And I've always felt that we're very similar as humans. We visually look differently, but I feel like every time I've come across people, at the end of the day, we're just the same person. Like we journey this world very similarly. So the idea of this podcast is two souls, one journey. So that no matter two souls, one journey. So no matter who we are physically, like just in this human body, our souls are journeying the same way. We all sort of go to similar hardships. We all go through similar joys. I think the more time you take to talk to somebody, the more you find out about them. You figure out that we actually have more in common than we are different, which is so much more exciting because I think with the world evolving into non-binary and the world is coming to a place where people don't want to feel like they're different or they don't want to be categorized into boxes. So it's giving me an opportunity to sort of call up with my friends and talk to them about these kind of things. And I've had a million questions to ask people, but this is a great way to I've been friends with somebody for 20 years, and I haven't thought of some of these questions and find out things about them. It's really just when I moved to Winnipeg, I was like, I really want to connect with my friends and family. And I thought of this idea a year ago, and I wasn't able to execute it. And now it's giving me an excuse to not connect with people in Toronto or anywhere in the world. And catch up with them, but actually have good, fun, meaningful conversations or remembering moments like our first part together or things that I forget. And they're like, oh my God, do you remember this? And I was like, oh my God, you were that person. Again, reminding us that, again, our souls were, like I mentioned, because my soul connected to you. I mean, I feel like that's happened with us where your name was in my inbox for like 7 years at least. And then one night I got
Eon, for sure.
Yeah, it was I think it was 2013 or something. I remember seeing the date. I remember getting up in the middle of the night because something had happened to me. And the thing was, you need to email Milica. That's the first thing. That message came to me, and I was like, okay. And here we are. But yeah.
Here we are. I know, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
It's fun to see how, and then I got to meet your sister who was also on the show too. So remember to go check that out as well. It's fun just to see how the world unravels when it needs to unravel. And I always find connections are fascinating. How, like, when I think of people, I like to think of like, how is it that I'm connected to you? And in order to be connected to you, the story of how in order to get connected to you, there are like 22 people that came before you. And the story started in 2001. And it actually started at an event in memory of the Twin Towers falling. That's how long ago the story of the connections of how it came to me to meet you came along. So it's quite long-winded, but it's fascinating because I always like to look back to who knew who recommended who to who. Right. And it's like, wow, those relationships, when you choose to have people in your life, the things and the people they can lead to is amazing. And I think so many times we can cut off, we can cut off relationships like, boom, I'm never talking to you again. But you never know. They can open doors for you. They can open all kinds of things. And to me, I think part of this is why I'm saying this is that I feel like a lot of people when they come out of the closet, or if they're having like a non-hetero life and they feel like they need to explain their lifestyle to people, I feel like a lot of them have people who just cut them out of their lives, cut them off. And my thought on that is like, you don't know who you're missing out on. Like, there's amazing people out there. Like, what are you people doing? You're missing out. So I encourage you, if you're one of those people, I'd be surprised if you're listening to my show if you are, but if you are, that's cool. And if you are, maybe consider those people that you've cut off for reasons that you think that you don't agree with their lifestyles. Maybe reevaluate yourself, become less of a judgy cunt, and maybe like try and reestablish something. Just saying, it could maybe create something for you in your life.
Yeah, what they say is some things you're like, if you think something's a judgy cunt, it's actually a mirror reflection. Like, there's something about them that you're not accepting for yourself. The recommendation thing I think is great. Like, even most recently with my sexual partners, I'm like I look for recommendations. If I'm sleeping around with people, I want you to tell me if, like, I want you to be like, this guy was really good, you should sleep with him. Or like I feel like I did that recently where I was like, this guy didn't work out for me, but he was a really good person. Maybe you should try. Like, I don't know. I want to like encourage in the community, like, give them a 5-star rating if you think they're good, and maybe they're not good for you. Like, I think the recommendation in the culture, like when you're recommending something, or even a sexual partner, it's fun. I don't know. It just makes it like, I appreciate that. I want people to recommend me more people they think I should sleep with that
and
are
having
good.
sex with more people. We should get you like one of those rate me accounts. It's one of the what are they like? They're like for businesses, right? And then you just can rate Shafik as a lover, and then people can go on and go, my experience with him was amazing. The things that man can do with his mouth, you don't even understand. Like, I think you could get some testimonials out there, and that'd be the way to go, right? And I don't know that there's actually, maybe there is a website where you can recommend lovers, but I think you're onto something, because in the hetero community, I've never heard of that existing, recommending your lover to somebody else. That is not a common thing. There's like more competition and ownership that happens in a hetero community, I think. So my interesting perspective. However, very cool that you have a community that's like, hey, this person was really fun. Just doesn't work for me. Try this out. That's beautiful. That is like the openness and the kind of world that I'm like so excited is existing. That's starting to show up. It's beautiful. I know that if I wasn't with my husband, I'd recommend him to somebody. I'd be like, this guy's awesome. You should like go out with my husband. He's fantastic.
I mean, I think if that's an option for them, you should still recommend him. Like, right? It's like his option. Yeah. I have a friend, actually, this idea came from a heterosexual female friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
Who has a very polyamorous life, and she's in India half the time, and then she's in Toronto half the time. And this one winter, she was going to India for 6 months, but she had just hooked up this really great guy. Her neighbor was single and lonely for the winter. She's like, great, I'll lend him to you for the winter, but he's fine when I come back. And I was like,
wow.
What? She's like, yeah, because she, like, her thing is like, there's abundance of people out there. The right people will come in whenever you want. But I was like, oh, like, it was such a, when you said that, I was like, this makes more of a sense. It's more of a community. Like, I mean, it ties into all of, like, it was a way of polyamory without polyamory. So yeah, no, yeah. I think we should do a ratemylover.com, and yes. Like, you can rate your teacher, you can rate the food you're eating. So maybe that's our second business idea. Yeah.
2 businesses in one. We need to talk more often, because this is crazy. I think we came up with business ideas the last time we talked too. We need to make notes. This is really good for us. Okay, we have one more commercial break. This is crazy, and then the show's practically over. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email. info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
And that was fun. It helps that Shafik is an excellent actor. And for those of you who watched the last commercial, because these commercials are filled with entertainment, you would have seen some excellent styles for, air blowjobs. It's like air guitar, but air blowjobs.
I mean, if you can have the shopping cart as a dance move, why can't you have the blowjob as a dance move?
I like it. It should be, right? Yeah. And like the masturbation also.
Like the jerk off. I think the jerk off already
jerk off moves, and then I think they're great. And nobody does them. They need to be incorporated way more often.
Yeah.
None of you can steal our business ideas because we're on it. Just letting you know.
They should all log in all the time because this is what happens in the break. They should dance with us and help create dance movements. And let's see.
Beautiful.
It should be a contest. Like everybody who attends.
They could actually be a guest on the show if they're excellent dancers. Dare you? Yeah. So that could be a lot of fun.
That move, like the come off or something. I don't know.
Right. The wiping it off, and you're like, whoa, it's dripping. Oh, it's dripping. Oh, I like how it's dripping. Oh, it's everywhere. Oh, I'm covered. Okay, now I'm going far. I'm going overboard. Oh, I'm having a bukkake festival. What's happening? This is amazing. Too good.
You want that dance off? It's yours. That one's yours.
That's my dance off.
Good. Yeah.
Bukkake festival dance off. I'm in. All right. Sometimes my brain. And now for those of you who are watching, you notice I get excited by these things. So my cheeks are turning a little bit red just thinking about that. It's pretty fun. And if you're like, she's embarrassed, I'm not embarrassed. I'm turned on, and that's cool. Yeah. So, right? Why aren't we turned on more often when we're on videos? I think we should be. Just it would make for much more entertaining watching and viewing. So we've only got 2.5 minutes left, and I would like to give you at least 1.5 minutes of that to share a message with the listeners and viewers about, especially, if they are young South Asians struggling, is there anything that you would like to share with them? Or, I'm going to give you the job of coaching. So would you like to coach these people? What? Okay.
That's tough. I mean, what I would say that life is ever changing, right? Like I think what you are, person where you are, because when you're younger and you're coming out, you don't have all, you're not a lot, like your parents have your responsibility, or someone else taking care of things for you. But like hang in there, I think is the best thing to say. Like I think if you're a younger person who isn't out and still struggling, like it's like I don't know what kind of pain that is, but like I think if you hang in there long enough, it'll be okay. We just have to hang in there. I think I don't have any magic words of wisdom. I think the older I get, I'm just like, life gives you everything you want. It shows up in time. It shows up in age. As young kids, we don't have that kind of what's the word? That patience. I know I didn't. I could want right away. I mean, I still want things right away. I just know how to get them better. But back as a kid, I didn't know those things, right? So that knowledge came to me as I got older. And I hang in there. So that I think that, life will be okay. Just hang in there. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And life is generally okay. And if life isn't feeling so great, you can absolutely connect with me through my website or through social media. You can connect, and I will give you 15 minutes of my time to, do some flash amazing coaching with you to just kind of assist you through that if you like. So remember to connect and stay tuned in and turned on, because next week we're always going to have a good show.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on. and tuned in to your body.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.